On this Friday night, beefing up Canada's border security. The ambitious plan to crack down on border crimes with hundreds of new officers.
This really is about ensuring Canada's safety and security and our sovereignty.
But just how feasible is it? Ukraine's president back in Washington, his talks with Donald Trump as the U.S. president seeks another diplomatic win in another war. Plus, a duke no more. Prince Andrew gives up his royal titles as he remains plagued by scandals linked to Jeffrey Epstein. And breaking the cycle.
I see myself in a lot of these guys.
The new initiative helping nonviolent Indigenous offenders with the power of ceremony over prison.
Global National, reporting tonight, Ann Gaviola.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The federal government unveiled a new blueprint to strengthen border security today. Prime Minister Mark Carney outlined the plan from a crossing in Ontario's Niagara region. The federal budget, which will be tabled next month, will allocate funding to hire an additional 1,000 border services officers to crack down on the illegal trade of stolen goods, guns, and drugs, and to enforce strict import measures and investigate unfair trade practices. The new measures also include a boost in benefits to aid recruitment. Mackenzie Gray looks at the Liberals' plan and the motivation behind it.
I've only been away for...
Mark Carney with nothing to declare.
I am going to get him in the vehicle to get him right on that odor.
When he toured a southwestern Ontario border crossing.
We still touch the drugs, but we'll get in there for you.
Yeah, I made that mistake yesterday. So. I put my hand and grabbed them.
But the Prime Minister fled the scene. To an Oktoberfest party in Kitchener, Ontario, leaving it up to the Public Safety Minister to reiterate a Liberal campaign promise.
We will spend $617.7 million over 5 years to train, hire, and deploy 1,000 CBSA officers.
The new border officers will complement 1,000 new RCMP officers promised on Friday. But Gary Anandasangari previously hasn't been able to say when the new help will start.
RCMP didn't know how many of the 1,000 officers that they promised were hired. Just a number. How many?
So I will invite the RCMP Commissioner
I want to hear it from you, Minister.
From
you, Minister.
But I'm not responsible for hiring of the officers.
You're not. I beg your pardon?
The Union for Canada Border Services Agency workers welcomes the help and new rules that will allow workers to retire at 25 years with a full pension. But getting the new officers trained is likely to be a major challenge.
The one training center that we have can graduate about a maximum of just under 700 officers a year, which is close to attrition. So if you want to get the number up an additional 1,000, we really need another training center.
Despite U.S. border numbers showing that less than 0.1% of U.S. fentanyl comes from the northern border, the Trump administration has slapped fentanyl tariffs on Canada. But the public safety minister says those concerns didn't factor into Friday's announcement.
This really is about ensuring Canada's safety and security and our sovereignty. This really is not a response to the U.S.
While Mark Carney's promised a 15% cut to the public service over 3 years in the budget, the CBSA is getting a reprieve, with their budget only being cut by 2%.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. The Carney government's moves on the border have in part been forced by the ongoing trade war with the United States. But Canada's economy is under pressure on two fronts, a trade war with the U.S. and one with China. Now, Prime Minister Mark Carney has been trying to maintain a unified Team Canada approach, but cracks are surfacing. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, joins us now from Ottawa. David?
Yeah, that's right, Ann. Team Canada is fragmenting on regional lines, east-west lines over China. Canada has 100% tariffs right now on Chinese electric vehicles, and that's good for the Ontario auto industry. But China responded with tariffs on Canadian canola, and that's bad for Saskatchewan and Manitoba.
Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew said that this two-front trade war disproportionately affects Western Canada. Earlier this week, Kinew and Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe asked Carney to drop tariffs on Chinese EVs to get China to drop tariffs on Canadian canola. Ontario Premier Doug Ford rejects this idea outright. He argued the EV tariff is critical to protecting Ontario's massive auto sector.
I respect what they're doing, but there's no damn way we should drop tariffs on China, I'll tell you that. Absolutely not.
Meanwhile, Ford is calling for Carney to, quote, get a deal or start hitting back. Carney and Ford had a private one-on-one meeting Thursday in Toronto, and ahead of that, Carney told reporters he favors a more restrained approach right now.
There's times to hit back and there's times to talk, and right now is the time to talk.
And David, it looks like Carney could also get dragged into the escalating war of words between the premiers of Alberta and BC over a potential new oil pipeline to the West Coast.
Absolutely. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she needs Carney to approve a new pipeline to the BC coast. But BC Premier David Eby, he's called Smith's pipeline proposal, quote, fictional, and he says it could jeopardize $40 billion worth of what he calls real projects already underway in BC. Here's Smith responding to Eby.
Well, I think Premier Eby's comments are un-Canadian and they're unconstitutional.
And Eby to Smith.
It's not the Danielle Smith show, it's the Canadian team. And we all deserve the same opportunity for the same federal funding.
Now, PMO sources are shrugging some of this off, suggesting, you're not going to get everyone to agree on all things all the time. But it is pretty clear that the comfortable consensus Carney had with premiers when he became PM in February has morphed into a much trickier set of relationships to manage. Anne.
David Akin in Ottawa, thank you. Top Canadian officials are in China to help smooth bilateral relations in the ongoing trade dispute. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand met with her Chinese counterpart for talks, including canola and electric vehicles. Now, there was no breakthrough, but both sides agree regular communication is key to building trust and cooperation. U.S. President Trump hosted the Ukrainian president at the White House again today, and he appeared to downplay the sale of long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy says they are desperately needed to strike deep into Russia. But as Jackson Proskow reports, Trump says he hopes to end the war without them.
The Ukrainian president returned to the White House, armed with optimism as he pushes for more advanced American weapons.
We want peace. Putin doesn't want it. We understand what we need to push Putin to negotiation table.
To pressure the Russian president, Ukraine is asking for Tomahawk missiles that could be used to launch precise attacks deep inside Russia.
But we don't have Tomahawks. That's why we need Tomahawks.
Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about Tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that.
After a 2.5-hour-long phone call with Vladimir Putin Thursday, President Donald Trump broke with Zelenskyy and expressed optimism that peace can be brokered, saying he's ready to meet with Putin in Hungary.
I think that President Putin wants to end the war, or I wouldn't be talking this way. I think he wants to end the war.
Exactly when that meeting would happen remains unclear.
Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine?
Just as after the Alaska summit, when Trump claimed a face-to-face would take place before the end of August. Since then, Trump has become openly frustrated with Putin's intransigence, and the U.S. has become more supportive of Ukraine.
And the United States, along with our allies, will take the steps necessary to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression.
By agreeing to another summit, Putin seems to have at least temporarily succeeded in getting Trump to delay any commitment for new weapons. Even Trump acknowledged Putin may simply be trying to buy more time.
I am, but, I've been played all my life by the best of them, and I came out really well, so it's possible.
Zelenskyy knows that Trump loves a deal. In exchange for Tomahawk missiles, he suggested he could provide the U.S. with thousands of Ukraine's domestically produced drones, which have proven surprisingly effective against Russia's invasion. Anne?
Jackson Proskow in Washington, thank you. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has pleaded not guilty to espionage charges. He surrendered this morning to face accusations of sharing classified information. Bolton, now a vocal critic of Trump, is charged with 8 counts of transmission of national defense data and 10 counts of retaining it. Each count is punishable with up to 10 years in prison. He was released from custody but must stay in the U.S. In the Middle East, Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the ceasefire with Israel, pledging to hand over the remains of all the dead hostages held in Gaza. Heavy machinery is being used to search for bodies believed to be buried in tunnels destroyed by Israeli strikes. Israel is waiting for the remains of 28 hostages to be returned, a key term of the ceasefire agreement. Hamas is criticizing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over his call to cut much-needed aid to Gaza. The United Nations says it has brought in about 560 tons of food per day since the deal took effect, but it still falls short of what's needed.
We're witnessing a moment of, cautious hope. We have the supplies, we have the systems, and there is progress. What we need now is the sustained access, multiple crossings, safe roads, and a commitment to facilitate aid on the ground in Gaza without obstruction.
The UN says getting access to Gaza City in northern Gaza, where the humanitarian crisis is most acute, is extremely challenging. Aid trucks are struggling to move along damaged and blocked roads. Prince Andrew is giving up his royal title of the Duke of York. In a statement, he says, after discussions with the king and my wider family, we concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. As I've said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Andrew's friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein returned to the headlines this week with the release of excerpts from the posthumous memoir of Virginia Giuffre. She alleged she was trafficked by Epstein and had sex with Andrew when she was 17 years old. In Madagascar, Colonel Michael Randrianarina was sworn in as the country's new president today. His elite army unit seized power Tuesday after weeks of youth-led protests over a lack of jobs, water, and ongoing power cuts. At least 22 people were killed, more than 100 injured during the demonstrations. The former president was forced to flee and was impeached earlier this week. The African Union and the UN have condemned the coup. Knocking it out of the park with the help of Mad Max. Coming up, the Blue Jays pitcher's pivotal role in the American League Championship Series. The Toronto Blue Jays are back on the ball field in Seattle tonight, hoping the road team advantage continues for just one more game. Now, the home team has lost all 4 games so far in this series. As Eric Sorensen reports, the odds of a Jays comeback have improved. And that is thanks in part to a powerhouse performance and a moment that may be remembered for years to come.
Max Scherzer and his genetically mismatched eyes weren't having it.
Knew how I wanted to attack, and then all of a sudden I saw Schneid's coming out, and I kind of went, whoa. Like, I'm not coming out of this ball game. Like, I feel too good.
At 41, a legend still playing the game, Scherzer shut down Seattle for most of the game, and for the second night in a row, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Jays' bats put the game away.
The Blue Jays are trying to overcome the statistical probabilities that were stacked against them after the first 2 games in Toronto. Generally, when teams are trailing 2-0 like the Jays were, they come back to win the series only 20% of the time. When it's 2-1, it's more like 33%. And when it's 2-2, it's about 50-50, and the Jays are back in it.
But that doesn't take into account variables like who's hot and home field advantage, which hasn't been much of an advantage.
The Jays had a slightly stronger regular season. They've got a little momentum, so I did a little model that says they have maybe a 52% chance of winning the series now. But you know what? There's no guarantees, and in the end, it all comes down to what happens on the field.
Toronto celebrated after tying the series, but they were also marveling at that moment when Scherzer went full Max.
I was nervous. I'm always nervous around Max when he's pitching. I was told not to touch him, not to talk to him, and the fire right there was something that was like, dang, you're talking to the manager. But for him to finish that off was it's pretty impressive.
The Blue Jays have had a primary mission here in Seattle, outplay the Mariners over 3 games and bring the series back to Toronto. Mission accomplished. There will be at least a Game 6 in Toronto Sunday night. And
Eric Sorensen in Seattle, thank you. And there's more new data that suggests the condo market is collapsing in Canada's biggest city, leading to a glut of condos. According to a real estate research firm, condo sales in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area reached a 35-year low in the third quarter. 319 new units were sold. That is down 54% from a year ago. A record number of condo projects have also been scrapped this year. 18 new builds have been canceled so far. And analysts say the market is undergoing a correction from excessive growth during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just ahead, a community mobilizing the growing Me Too movement in Canada's north as it demands change. It's been 8 years this month since Harvey Weinstein's sex abuse scandal amplified the Me Too movement, raising awareness of the widespread nature of abuse and harassment by men in positions of power. Now, the Me Too wave has reached Canada's north and is being dubbed the Inuit Me Too. As Melissa Ridgen reports, the movement seems to be picking up steam and has put a prominent First Nations organization in the crosshairs.
It was a statement that seemingly came out of nowhere. Inuit Tapparit Kanatami, the representative body for Inuit in Canada, taking to social media earlier this week to remind the community that the National Inuit Action Plan on Missing and Murdered Inuit Women, Girls, and Gender Diverse People calls on organizations to implement policies that discourage abusers from holding leadership positions. The Nunavut Women's Association added their voice, saying, "We've witnessed many women come forward to share their stories of sexual assault and harm. We believe you." Polaris Prize-winning Inuk singer and songwriter Tanya Tagak amplified these statements on her social media.
Now it's time to act for Inuit organizations to review their governance policies, to create independent reporting systems, and to protect survivors and victims.
Crystal Martin is an Inuk activist who started a petition that's garnered close to 1,000 signatures. One organization in the crosshairs of the movement, the Manitoba Inuit Association, which has been at the center of multiple investigations by Manitoba Workplace Safety and Health over toxic workplace allegations. The petition calls for the removal of CEO Nastanya Mullen, prompting an emergency board meeting said to be held sometime this weekend. A spokesperson says no one from the association will comment until after that meeting. Mullen didn't respond to an interview request.
You hardly see any protesting happen within Inuit communities. We've always been just, okay, and just way too understanding. And I think now we're seeing that aggression out through these petitions, through support, through solidarity.
Gendered violence is a massive problem in the north. Women in Nunavut are victims of violent crime at a rate more than 13 times higher than women in Canada as a whole. The risk of a woman being sexually assaulted in the territory, 12 times higher than the provincial territorial average.
When we stay quiet in all of the face of violence and harassment, we send this message that power matters more than people. And that's not who we are as Inuit.
A community now mobilizing to take back that power. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Next, an alternative to criminal charges, how a first-of-its-kind program is using ceremony to find accountability in northern BC. A new program launched in BC is working to divert Indigenous offenders away from the criminal justice system, in part by using the power of Indigenous ceremonies. The initiative aims to address the over-incarceration of Indigenous people and give participants a sense of belonging, worthiness, and connection. Neethu Garcha sat down with the program's elder in residence, who says ceremony can be a way to find rehabilitation and accountability.
Near Prince George, BC, Elder Marcel Gagnon finds stillness with his dog, the trees, and the fire. Fire for Gagnon isn't just warmth, it's medicine, a central part of ceremonies for people trying to break cycles of addiction and incarceration.
We need the clinical part of it, we need the counseling, we need the treatment, don't get me wrong, but those two have to be balanced. The clinical and the ceremonial have to be in balance.
Gagnon is elder in residence at the Indigenous Diversion Centre in Prince George. A new pre-charge program means RCMP can divert offenders of certain non-violent crimes here instead of recommending charges.
Our purpose is to lower the recidivism and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in jail.
This week, the BC First Nations Justice Council thanked Gagnon for nearly 3 decades of work helping others find stability. He says for years, he couldn't find it himself.
I see myself in a lot of these guys.
He was born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder but didn't receive a diagnosis until his 60s. Along with the generational impacts of colonization and residential schools, it shaped his early life.
Yeah, I did time in jail as a youth. I was on the same trajectory as these men that I work with today, exactly the same. I was homeless.
What helped him change course was ceremony. He attended his first powwow in his late 30s.
And I started to cry. Something historical and old and ancient even inside me awakened when I was in that moment at the right time.
He says ceremony isn't a way around accountability, it's a way through it.
I belong to a Sundance group, but I have to be accountable morally and everything else to this group of people.
Gagnon is also a Juno Award-winning artist.
It's almost enough to make a grown man cry.
Who once wrote songs about pain while living on the street.
So-called friends who are as cold as ice. They want your money, they steal your time. Your girlfriend tells you you pay no mind. You're just a born loser, losing all of your mind. I wrote that down on a napkin.
Today, his life is a song of healing, ceremony, and second chances. Neetu Garsha, Global News, Claytley Tenay Territory.
That is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Ann Gaviola. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Edmonton, Dorval, Quebec, and Dunnville, Ontario. Please keep mailing your pictures to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thank you again for watching. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.